Hi friends, it's Chris. Welcome back. So we've got my reading wrap up for the month of July. I did 12 books and 2 DNFs, and I got a few 5-star reads in here. Overall, it was a good month. But before I get to that, I wanted to talk about a few changes coming up. So let's do a little housekeeping. Nothing major, all good things. Starting in September, I'm going to start doing my reading wrap-ups bi-monthly. Um, I figure it'll be better experience for you as the viewer because the videos won't be as long. And I'm also going to work on editing myself so that I bring it in a little bit and I don't do so much yakking away. As you know, I like to talk. Then also, please stick around for the end of the video because at the end of my reading wrap-ups, I am going to start letting you know, giving you a little sneak peek into what I'm currently reading or thinking about reading. Depends on where I'm at in the video. So yeah, stick around for that. And that's about it. So let's go ahead and get this party started. All right, let's talk about some books, shall we? So, starting out July. Starting out so-so. Anyway, I've got 3 books here. And the first one we're going to talk about is Anatomy of an Alibi by Ashley Easton. So in this book, we are following Camille Bayless, and she is married to Ben, who is a high-power profile attorney, and Camille also comes from a very wealthy family in Louisiana. And she feels like Ben's been doing some dirty things behind her back. Then the other character is Aubrey, and Aubrey had a life-changing event about 10 years prior, and she feels that Ben knows something about it. So Camille and Aubrey kind of team up together to hatch a plan and switch places. And now, like, Aubrey pretends she's Camille and she's out like doing things because Ben tracks Camille's every move. So figuring this will give her the opportunity to do a little spying on Ben. But in the meantime, Ben turns up dead. So we have 2 women that could possibly be the suspects, but only one of them has an airtight alibi. So that's where the story begins. Now, there's a lot of hype on this book. A lot of people like it, and I could see why. However, for me, it just kind of fell a little flat. I didn't find there was enough tension in there, enough suspense, enough thrill, enough twist. So for me, it just kind of felt kind of flat. It was just an okay read for me. And yeah, I don't know. Tell me what you think if you've read the book. But for me, it just didn't hit home the way I was hoping it would. It was kind of boring. Yeah, for me, it felt a little boring. It was a little slow. I like a little more action, so to speak, in my stories, especially when I'm reading a thriller. Yeah, and that suspense and tension and thrill was not there for me. So anyway, based on that, I have given this book 2.25 stars. That is Anatomy of an Alibi by Ashley Easton. Then I finally read Song of Susanna, sixth book in the Dark Tower series. This is the one I had hoped that I was going to be able to read in June. and I had it on hold and with through Libby for like ever. It was sitting at 4 weeks, 4 weeks, 4 weeks, 4 weeks. And I was like third in line. I'm like, people, it's not, the book isn't that long. Why is it taking you so long to listen to it? I want to say it was a 10-hour book. What's the holdup here? I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't remember. It wasn't that long. And I'm like, why is this book sitting here at 4 weeks for like 2.5 weeks? And I'm like, you know what? I have Amazon Unlimited Music. And when you subscribe to Amazon Unlimited Music, you get one free book a month. Anyway, let's talk about Song of Susanna, book number 6 in the Dark Tower series. Not that I could say too much because, again, this is where you're limited. When you're reading a series, you're very limited on what you could say because we're 6 books in. I can't really talk about what happens here because everything I could tell you is a spoiler. So all I could say is we're coming close to the end of the road with Roland and his quartet to save the Dark Tower and following the beam to the Dark Tower. I did rate this book not super high, did give it 3.75 stars. Not because I didn't like it. I did. I enjoyed everything up until about, I'm just guessing, here, the end. There was a shift in here, and I can't tell you what it was. And for me, I was a little annoyed by it. I was annoyed with Stephen King. Like, really? Why would you do that? Why would you do that? And I can't tell you what he did. I'm curious to see if other people felt the same way I did about this little shift in the story, but overall, I enjoyed the book, but I guess I was just being nitpicky, and I'm like, yeah, well, I'm deducting some stars because you kind of ticked me off with what you did at the end of this book. Yeah, that's just me. But again, it's a series, so it's not much you could say when you're talking about a series, right? Because it's going to be a spoiler. So I can't tell you what happened or what the premise is. The premise of the book is, all I could tell you is we are still following Roland and his quartet in this universe to the Dark Tower. Yeah, and we're really coming close. There's a lot of threads here that are going to tie together in that 7th and final book. And you know what? I probably am going to read it because I'm getting anxious. I want to know. I want to know. So yeah, that is, again, Song of Susanna, Stephen King, number 6, Dark Tower series, and I gave it 3.75 stars. Okay, then I had an off the wall read. That book is A Short Stay in Hell by Stephen Peck. This book, I got to look again here at the name. We are following a man called Soren Johansson, and he's a faithful, devout Mormon, and he dies. And he thought, based on his religious upbringing, that, when he dies, he'd be reunited with all his loved ones again in the afterlife and whatnot. But instead, he finds himself in kind of like hell. And this place is a vast library of infinite amounts of books. And you have, in order to escape or leave, you have to find the book that tells the story of your life. So basically, what this book turned out to be was like a philosophical experiment on time, infinity, the afterlife, and how it could possibly be viewed. Was it horrible? No, it wasn't horrible, but it was kind of like a mind F, you know? I can't swear on YouTube. Um, where it's one of those things where it gets in your brain and just it gives you like a brain cramp. I can't explain it because what the author proposes really puts you in a place of where you're trying to wrap your brain around this, and it kind of gives you like this feeling of, I don't want to use the word claustrophobia, but yeah, like I kind of like claustrophobia in your head, like, oh my God, I can't even, my brain can't handle that. Um, so for that part, I guess the book did its job. It did make you, it did make me sit and think like, oh God, this is like, this hurts my head and makes me anxious. Um, so yeah, it was interesting. And being that it was only 2 plus some minutes book, 2 hour plus some book, I stuck it out and I understand what the premise of the book was and what the author was trying to do. And I could see why some people were kind of like, wow, blown away, and why some people weren't. And for me, it just didn't land for me. But it was interesting. It was something different. It was definitely kind of out of my wheelhouse. And I do like to kind of step outside my comfort zone from time to time. And I do like to just not only stick to thrillers all the time. Um, yeah. So sometimes I do like a mind bend. But this mind bend was, like I said, a very frustrating mind bend. So it didn't leave you feeling like with a good feeling. Um, so yeah. But anyway, that is A Short Stay in Hell by, what did I say? Robert Peck? Stephen Peck. Stephen Peck, and I gave it 2 stars. So anyway, let me know if you've read it. Curious. Anyway, let's go ahead and move on to this next book that I'm reading. All right, so I still must have been on that philosophical kick because I went right into this next book, I Who Have Never Known Men by Jacqueline Hartman. Now, I liked it so much that I actually went out and bought the physical copy of the book. And it's not a very long book. As you can see, what is it, about 170 pages or so. I did do it on audio. And yeah, I'm going to read you the synopsis really quickly and then talk a little bit about what my thoughts and feelings were on the book. So basically, this says deep underground, 39 women live imprisoned in a cage. Watched over by guards, the women have no memory of how they got there, no notion of time, only a vague recollection of their lives before. As the burn of electric light merges day into night and the numberless years pass, a girl, the 40th prisoner, sits alone and outcast in the corner. Soon she will show herself to be the key to the others' escape and survival in the strange, sorry, I don't have my glasses, the strange world that awaits them above ground. That's the book in a nutshell. However, it's much more than that. This book is a quiet philosophical dystopian novel, unlike the previous one that I read, which was more abstract. Really thinking outside the box on that one. Oh, this one asks more profound questions, like on what it is to be human, um, loneliness, identity, female friendship. Um, yeah, I found this to be, I'm trying to get my words here. Why do I do this all the time? This one actually gave me time to think about the premise of the book while still feeling emotionally attached to the character. Does that make sense? Like, I need to be attached to my characters in some way, shape, or form. Either I really like it more when I really like the character, but I have to have some kind of emotional attachment to them. And this book did this for me. And now, this is not a fast paced dystopian novel by any means. It's more reflective and thought provoking. Um, it leaves you with, it leaves you thinking at the end of the book about so many things, just in humanity. And it just gives you food for thought. And I like that. I enjoyed this book. I thought it was superbly written. The Now it is a translated book, because was this woman French or Portuguese? I can't quite remember. I think she was French but Portuguese descent, I think. But this is translated. It was done very well. And also the afterword here by Sophie McIntosh. Highly recommend listening to that or reading the afterword. That it was beautifully done. Anyway, again, beautifully written book, thought provoking. Yeah, very thought provoking, and just it's a book that leaves you thinking. And I thoroughly enjoyed this book, so much so that I did give it 4.5 stars. Um, so far this month, it's my favorite book this month. But we're not too far into the month. Well, we are far into it, but book wise, not so much. Anyway, I Who Have Known Men by Jacqueline Hartman. Good one. Let me know if you've read it. All right. Got a couple DNFs to talk about. Why can't I get rid of these DNFs? Anyway, the first one is I See You've Called In Dead by, what was his name? I wrote it down. John Kennedy. I was looking for a palate cleanser, is what I was looking for, because after the two kind of philosophical thought thinking type novels, I thought, well, I need a palate cleanser, something light. This looked like it would be funny. The synopsis said it was funny, and so I thought, okay, even the title sounded like it could be kind of humorous, right? Anyway, this book, we are following a gentleman by the name of, his last name Stanley. What was his first name? I wrote it down. Bud Stanley. He is an middle-aged obituary writer, and one day he just kind of sparks his own midlife crisis by publishing his own obituary that he wrote. All right, so he works for a newspaper, and I DNF this at about 30%. It was boring to me. Just following this man's, just, it was, not only was it boring, it was just kind of like, don't want to use the word pathetic. It wasn't pathetic. He was just so, woe is me, you know? Like, it was almost like he was bringing on his own miseries, right? He wasn't living his life, and, I couldn't do it. It was not a book for me. And I said, you know what? I need to move on, so I'm going to DNF it. Which brings me to the next book that I DNF'd as well. So maybe I just went a little too deep. I don't know. The next book I DNF'd was Blood Meridian by Cormac McCarthy. Now, this is supposed to be like a modern classic and really, really dark. Now, I like dark. I do. I love dark novels. And, it wasn't the darkness that disturbed me, is I couldn't find a story in it. I did it get through 30% of the book. There was no story there to attach the darkness to. It was just about, it was bleak, so bleak, violent, um, yeah. You know, basically, this is kind of another novel that's kind of supposedly philosophical. It's about evil, it's about humanity, it's about, yeah. But in that, I can't tell you what it's about because I couldn't find a story here to, and I'm like, you know what? I'm going to stop right here. All right, let's talk about the other book that I read. This is a new release, and that is Everything Was Beautiful and Nothing Hurt by Ben Reeves. Anyway, this is another good one. I wonder if this could be kind of philosophical too, in a sense. In this book, Death is narrating the entire story because the book is about him, Death. And Death's name is Travis in this book, and he lives, I think it was an apartment building. He lives across from a family, uh, Dahlia and her two children. And so throughout the first, let me comment here on the prose of this book. Oh my gosh. Now, mind you, I am not a person who likes flowery writing. And I could think of one book in particular that I did not like because it was so flowery. I'm like, and I'm thinking because that was a thriller. So why are we, it just didn't mesh, right? This book, the flowery writing just enhances this story. And it was beautiful. And if you're doing audio, don't do yourself a disservice and speed this up. Don't, because absorb each and every word that this author is giving you. It's beautiful. Truly it is. It's beautiful. Anyway, so where was I going with that? Travis and the people across. Okay. So Travis, Death narrates this whole story. And throughout the story, Death comes to call and whatnot, but he seems, there is a relationship that starts to develop with the family across the hall. And what I found this book to be relaxing almost because the words were so beautiful. It was just a very relaxing read. Um, there were emotional moments in the book. Like you would think that this book is very depressing and sad, and it's really not. I mean, there were moments in the book where death came to call on certain individuals, and it was just like, oh, but it wasn't devastating. Okay. Um, However, now I did end up giving this book 4.5 stars. And the reason it's not a 5-star read for me was because the whole tone and set of the book was very calm, relaxing, pretty. The prose carried me through this book. Okay. But the end, I didn't give it 5.5 stars because that emotional investment really wasn't there throughout the book until the end. And then the ending was like, bam, pulled me in like a magnet. And I was just, after the book was done, I sat there for a minute. And we're talking like the last, 6 pages maybe. I was like, wow, wow. The ending will leave you with something to think about. The ending of the book made the entire read fantastic. So, anyway, there's my thoughts on that. And I am currently reading, and we're going to talk about that next. I'm in just about 50% done through with Demon Copperhead. And yeah, I think I'll have some things to say about that. Anyway, let's go ahead and talk about it right now. Okay, so the next book I read was Demon Copperhead by Barbara Kingsolver. This book is a coming of age story, and we are following a young man named Demon Copperhead. His real name's Damon, but kind of nicknamed him Demon. And his childhood in the Appalachian Mountains. He was born into poverty, and he's had his fair share of bad luck. And through the story, we are following him trying to navigate his way through his childhood life, his place in the world, in society, where he fits and where he belongs. It's a heartbreaking story. It's funny. It's hopeful. The entire story is told through Demon's eyes, and the author, Barbara Kingsolver, sheds a lot of light on the opioid crisis in the Appalachian Mountains, as well as what the reality of life is like in rural America, right? So I'm not going to say I didn't like the book. I have a lot of conflicted feelings about it. Not really conflicted. Well, yes, they are, because the book was written exceptionally well. And I could see why it's gotten so much praise and won the Pulitzer Prize. I I can see that. The narration of the story being told by Demon himself. He narrates, it's all in first, it's all in single point of view. And so she constructed the characters in this book so well that you really got a good visual feel, an emotional response to the characters who are living this hard life. So I'm conflicted because even though it was written so exceptionally well, my experience with the book was like I wanted like a little more momentum, a little more hope. We spent a lot of time in Demon's interpretation of his life. It's a lot of self-deprecation and woe is me. And even though I'm rooting for him, you just want to grab the kid by the collar and say, wake up here. Okay. Grab your boots, what is that? You grab your boots by grab your shoes by your bootstraps. There's a saying, and let's go. So yeah, that's why I say I'm conflicted. I can't fault anything on the writing of this book. It was top notch, exceptional. But I just struggled because I wanted it to just, yeah, it's a lot of darkness. It's a very dark book, even though there's Demon's personality. He lends a lot of humor to the story as he speaks. But it's dark and it's sad. And because it's written so well, it kind of drags you down a little bit, just a little bit. And I thought it was a little bit long. I remember thinking, oh my God, kid, you're still 11 years old. I'm not getting any younger here, but you're still 11. Let's tell the story. So things like that kind of frustrated me. But I mean, I enjoyed the book. I enjoyed it for what it was, how well written it was. I enjoyed her character development. Yes, it's exceptional. It really is. 5 stars for writing, 3.5 stars for my experience reading it. 3.5 stars is not a bad rating. My ratings are, to me, a 3.5 to a 4.5 star book is a good book. This is a book I would recommend to people. I wouldn't recommend it to everybody. I'd recommend it to somebody that I know enjoys strong character development, character driven novels. Yeah, you gotta like a character driven novel. Don't expect plot here, because it's all about Demon and his life and his experience, how he sees it and how he tells it. And like I said, the author did a fabulous job doing that. It was fantastic. The writing is exceptional. Seriously, it really is. And I appreciate well written books, but that doesn't mean because I feel the book is a 5 star in writing, I'm going to give it a 5 star in my experience with the book, right? It's like it may not be a trophy that goes on my shelf, but it's certainly left footprints in my heart, right? So that's where we're going to leave that. And I'm going to tell you about the next book that I read. Okay, let's talk about this next book, Rebecca by Daphne du Maurier. And in this book, we are following a young woman who meets a wealthy widower, Maximum de Winter. And after a whirlwind romance, they get married and he whisks her off to his big fancy estate, Manderley. And when she gets there, she starts to feel things aren't quite what they seem. And she feels that the memory and presence of Maxim's deceased wife, Rebecca, still seems to linger everywhere on this estate and even with the people that live there, like, the servants and whatnot. Oh, guys, first, I'm just going to say first, I love this book. You get this strong atmospheric feeling. Like everything about it is just creepy. It's a little eerie. Just have all this sense of unease, like what is happening, what's going to happen. I always felt this, like, just this tension of uneasiness, right? Just as the current Mrs. De Winter is, you know, walking through the house, different rooms, her thoughts, her feelings, you feel her unease and insecurities right along with her. So the first half of this book is all about the atmosphere. And then a plot emerges. And then we start following this plot. This book was great. I don't want to say too much. Characters, many, you're going to just one in particular, you just got to hate her, Mrs. Danvers. Uh, oh, this woman is just horrific. She's just an awful, nasty woman. And even Maxim is not a very nice man. And at times, part of me felt sorry for the current Mrs. De Winter. And I keep calling her the current Mrs. De Winter because, and I don't think this is a spoiler in any way, what's really weird is what I found strange and I noticed early on, we never find out what her name is. She's just Mrs. De Winter. It's just, thought that was kind of weird. Well, I don't think it's kind of weird. I think that if I was going to be discussing this book in a book club, with other people who've read it, I have my thoughts on why she remains unnamed. But I don't want to, don't want to get too deep here because, I don't want to give nothing away. This is a fantastic book. So I'm trying to, yes, Mrs. Danvers, horrible. Maxim, Lot to be desired there. So you kind of feel sorry for Mrs. De Winter because she is young, she's inexperienced, um, especially in this world of wealthy elite people. She is more from she came from her mother died early, so you feel bad for her. But this book was fantastic. Loved it. The atmosphere was very gothic and creepy. Yeah, I just felt like I was immersed in this kind of castle like place with fog and mist. And it was great. Loved it. Highly recommend this book to anybody. And I am actually giving this book is a 5-star read for me. First one of July. Loved it. Rebecca by Daphne du Maurier. Check it out. Let me know in the comments if you've read it and what your thoughts are on it. And yeah, loved it. So let's go ahead and move on to the next book. Okay, so this next book that I read is a post-apocalyptic thriller by T.L. Payne. In the book one, it is a series of 6 books, and I think it's 6 books. It might be 7. Anyway, the first book is called Turbulent. And now in this story, it starts out, we're following Maddie. She's a young lady in, I think she's in her late teens, and she's in the Chicago airport, and an EMP strikes the nation and wipes out most of the power grid. So basically, we are following this character through this book on trying to survive. And along the way, she picks up a young girl. She's only 10 years old. So now Maddie just so happens to have a father who is deceased, and he was a prepper. So in the book, she talks a lot about, not having her get home bag with her, and she wished she had it. And I don't know. You know what? I found out after I got this book that it was YA. It's not written like YA, like we're following a bunch of goofy teenagers around so much. But to me, for me, I went into it thinking, oh, you know, post-apocalyptic, things that could really happen, which is, unlike a thriller, because usually like in thrillers, it's a lot of things that are a little unrealistic, but, an EMP strike is very realistic and possible in the world. So it piqued my interest. But that being said, the characters were super one-dimensional and flat. The thriller parts of it were short and uninteresting. It was very disjointed. I found that the whole book was written, it was just disjointed. We're jumping from Maddie to another person, and another person, then back to Maddie, and then the book is over. Yeah, it wasn't horrible. It wasn't horrible enough to DNF by any means, but there just wasn't enough. It was like there wasn't enough research done on EMP. If an electromagnetic pulse was to wipe out the grid. Um, I think this book story had potential, a lot of potential, um, because it focuses on something that isn't unrealistic. So, on what would happen, what would the aftermath be if something like this were to happen? Going into the breakdown of society and government and humanity, how people would change, to fight to survive. And it was all superficial. Um, so yeah, it wasn't my cup of tea. I won't continue this series because it wasn't for me. Um, Maybe it didn't get too deep into it because it is a YA novel. I don't know, but I stuck through it, and ultimately I did give the book 2.5 stars. Um, I mean, it wasn't, like I said, it wasn't horrible. It was just kind of meh, boring. Maybe it was just kind of boring. Like I said, there was no like real character work here or anything. It was just a story being told. And I think it could have been better, you know, could have been elaborated on more, a bit more. So that is Turbulent, book one in the Days of Want series by T.L. Payne. Let me know if anybody's ever read any of these books and what your take is. I gave it 2.5 stars. All right, so the next book I read was The Retirement Plan by Sue Hinsenbergs. And this book is about four married couples. They're in their 60s, and the one wife's husband dies, and she collects some money. And basically, the other wives, they're all kind of jealous now because Marlene, the one wife, um, she's going to be going to living on her best life now. And so they start to conspire together to murder their own husbands. And what follows is just a comedy of errors and yeah, you could imagine. Okay, so you got this group of 60-year-old women and trying to off their husbands so that they can collect life insurance policy money too, because each one has their own beef of why they're just teed off at their spouse, and the reasons are funny. um I'm smiling because this book was just a lot of fun. It was. I felt, for me, it felt like a watching Abbott and Costello, right? You've got these suburban, it was like Desperate Housewives, kind of like that type of vibe. Just, it was just a comedy of airs. And yeah, this was a lot of fun. I thoroughly enjoyed this. It was a great palate cleanser. Um, and in the meanwhile, it's like there's two things going on in this book. You had the wives trying to conspire how they're going to kill their husbands, and the husbands are conspiring because they think somebody's trying to kill them. It's just it, funny. I mean, I don't even know what to say about the book. That's the premise of the book, okay? Is these wives trying to off their husbands for retirement money, and what follows is just like I know there's like a madcap. Is that what they call it? It's just, yeah, Desperate Housewives vibes. And in the beginning of the book, I had a problem with the narrator because I'm like, oh, I. But this book, just the story pulled me in. Just the things that these women would say, or how their husbands would talk. I mean, clearly they were just, these people are not murderers, and yeah, I felt like I was watching like a ridiculous Abbott and Costello movie. They get themselves involved in these situations, and it was a breath of fresh air. Let's put it that way. I've been reading a lot of dark stuff lately, and deep stuff, heavy stuff, and this was exactly what I needed because it was light, it's fast paced. Um it was just funny. I thoroughly enjoyed this book. I really, really did. I'm giving this book 4 stars because based on my enjoyment. I mean, and for me, that's how I kind of rate my books. How did it make me feel? This made me smile. I was smiling. I chuckled a few times. Exactly what I've been looking for. So if you like a book that is just light, fast-paced, silly, um, humorous, and palate cleansing, check this one out. This was good. So that is The Retirement Plan by Sue Hinsenbergs. Yeah, it was great, you guys. It really was. It was a fun read. All right, let's jump right into this next book, and that is Best Offer Wins by Marissa Cashino. This is a psychological thriller, a little dark satire, dark humor, domestic thriller. It's just a combination of all the things. In this book, we are following a woman, Margot, and her husband are house hunting, and it's during a time where the housing market is tough. You can't get a bite to save your life. You're outbid, and it's house after house after house. And Margot becomes obsessed with finding that perfect house because she wants to start a family. And she does find that perfect house. And at this point in the story, this is where the whole thing just starts to go off the wall. She gets so obsessed and starts doing the craziest things. I I mean, again, psychological thriller and the dark humor here was just I was found myself sitting there thinking, "Girl, what are you doing?" The things she was doing to get this house was just it was funny. I found it funny. So that was like the good portion of the first half of the book, right? Then we get to the middle of the book. Now, first half of the book, I'm thinking, damn, this is a good book. I like this. This is great. Fast paced, and then it started to slow down. And the book focused on another aspect in the story. And it got a little meh, just kind of, it went from to kind of like, okay, slow and let's move. This is kind of, And then from that point, the book takes another turn and picks up again and turns into something even more extreme and crazy. I really enjoyed the book. I found it to be the concept was different. It was unique. There was dark humor in it, a crazy female character, mystery, tension. Yeah, overall, I enjoyed this book. It was fun. It was a fun read. And right now, coming off of the last book I read, The Retirement Plan, into this one, I'm riding the wave here, riding the wave. I enjoyed the book. That's Best Offer Wins by Marissa Cashino. And ultimately, this book landed at 4.5 stars for me. I thought it was great. It was a fun read and very entertaining. Let me know in the comments below if you've read this one and what your thoughts are. This next book I read is Pines, and it is the first in the Wayward Pines trilogy by Blake Crouch. And in this book, we are following Ethan Burke. He's a Secret Service agent, and he's been sent down to Wayward Pines to help locate two other missing agents, and they've been missing for like 10 days, I think. And on his way there, he's in a car crash. And when he comes to, he's actually on the bank of a river, and he doesn't know who he is, where he is, why he's there. He's all banged up, his terrible headache, the whole 9 yards, right? I mean, just in a car accident. So as he starts making his way through the town to get help and figure out who he is, he starts to notice, and the reader as well, things are very strange in this town. Now, it seems like a real quaint, cozy little community, and, people baking pies, stuff like that. It's like that type of town. Everybody knows everybody, and everybody's so nice. And so it's weird. It's weird. And you sense that when you're reading it, which is why I like the story, because it's like you question what is going on here. Like, this is really strange. It's was fast paced, um, which I enjoyed a good fast paced book because a lot of books I've been reading lately have been a little slow. Not in a bad way, but this one was quick, and you just found yourself. I found myself wanting to continue. Like I just wanted to keep going to listen because I'm just what's going to happen next. Because it was one thing after the other with this poor guy. Um, yeah, I did enjoy this, and this book is a mystery, suspense, thriller, and sci-fi, and it had all the elements of those genres were done perfectly. You got a little bit of everything, and everything just kind of it all meshed well together. So I did enjoy that. It made for a very interesting read. I will say that. Towards the end, it became a little bit of a mind bend. You had to really concentrate on like, wait a minute, what? But I find because I've read two other Blake Crouch books as well, and I find that he has a tendency to do that. You just kind of like you have to take a step back and think about what you just heard or read, because it can get a little not confusing. It's a little bit of a mind bend. I don't know if I'm using the right words. I hope I'm conveying what I'm trying to say here. Um, yeah, I did. I enjoyed this book. I would recommend this book to anybody who enjoys a mystery, thriller, suspense novel with a little speculative science fiction. It wasn't sci-fi like where it's, some sci-fi is real deep and like, oh my God, I'm never going to wrap my brain around this. It's not that bad, but it's there. So that might be like a deterrent for you. It wasn't for me, and I don't really read sci-fi lightly. Um, but yeah, this was a good one. I did enjoy it. I plan on picking up the other two uh, books that go in the series at some point. I'm not rushing to do it, but I'm not going to put it off too long either. Maybe next month I'll read the second book. We'll see what's my TBR is looking like at that time. But yeah, this is Pines by Blake Crouch, first book in the Wayward Pines trilogy. Great book. I gave it 4 stars. It was fast paced, a lot of action going on, a lot of stuff, a lot of stories, and just weird. Just very weird and mysterious. So let me know if you've read that. I know Allie from Allie's Book Nook has read it because she mentioned it to me at some point or other that I should give it a try, and I'm glad I did because this was a good one. So we are almost at the end of July here, and I'm just now listening to the last book for this month, and I'm not going to talk about right here, but you're going to find out about it in like 2 seconds. All right, so let's move on to that last book of the month. All right, let's talk about the last book I read for July. I finally finished up the Dark Tower series by Stephen King. This is book 7, The Dark Tower. Oh, what a ride. I am totally enthralled with this series. It was one of Stephen King's best that I've read so far. As a single novel, The Stand still remains my favorite, with the second being Dolores Claiborne. But if I had to talk about series that I've read, this was truly incredible. I I sat with this for a while after I finished it, and I was like, I to just try to sum it up. We start out with book 1, The Gunslinger. That's where we meet Roland Deschain. He is the last gunslinger who is part cowboy, knight, old world lawmaker. Um, His world is falling apart, and his one purpose that he is driven by is to reach the Dark Tower. And also to defeat his nemesis, the Dark Man. What is truly fascinating about this story is how Stephen King brings so many of his other characters from his other works into the story. It is filled with Easter eggs throughout. There'll be breadcrumbs from other books that he has written, which was fun because I'd be sitting there listening and I'd be like, oh, wait a minute. Wait, that's such and such. But that was a lot of fun. It's just a wild, wild ride. So from book one, we move into book two. Now, book one, the entire book is just laying the foundation to just get a feel of what Midworld is all about, this fantasy place. It takes time to build through the layers of this world. It is big. And it's also connected to, I want to say Earth, but it's not Earth. It's also connected to our world. And so there's time travel involved in here. And in book two, we are introduced to the other characters that follow along with Roland on his journey. And that's the drawing of three. And they all form a quartet. It's Roland's found family. And throughout all the books, in the adventures and the terrors, you really get to know these people. They become endearing to your heart. Yeah, this is a fantastic series. I can't say enough about it. And, you know, if we wanted to talk about like what genre this goes in, there is no one genre for this. It's like genre bending, you know. It is fantasy, it is horror, it is adventure, it is a western, it is science fiction. It's post-apocalyptic, it's dark fantasy. It's all encompassing. And I highly recommend this series to anybody who has patience. I say patience because Stephen King has a way of writing where there's so much description, sometimes it gets very long. How I kind of described it is you're on this ride and it builds and then it reaches this point, like this, all this momentum and action is happening, and then when that finishes it comes back down, and then the book levels off a bit, so you have space in between all these peaks and valleys, and when you're in the valleys is where the story continues to be told and unfold into the next story, which goes up and reaches that crescendo before it falls again. And once you get to that last book and things start really coming to a close, yeah, fantastic. The ending of this book, I wish I had somebody in my life that I could actually sit down and say, oh my God, what do you think of that ending? I loved it. Not just the ending, just the characters. We've got Eddie and we've got Susanna and there's Oi. Oi, oh God, Oi. This is a cute little, kind of like a dog, but he kind of talks. He's a little creature, but in our world it would probably be like a dog. And I wish they had like a plush animal. If they had a plush of Oi, I would buy it and I'd put him on my shelf over there. I love this book. Absolutely love this series. And let me know in the comments if anybody has read it. Yeah, this is Made me happy. Made me happy. This filled and checked all my boxes. Yeah, excellent. And I'm giving this book 5 stars because, as you know, if you've been following along, I have not rated each book 5 stars. This book was 5 stars, and I'm rating the entire series as a 5 star read. You know, some books are a lot better than others. Some books are so, maybe a little long, a little drawn out. But overall, fantastic, 5 stars. And like I said, I would recommend this to anybody who loves characters um, and has patience to sit through the peaks and valleys of the book. Because looking back on the series, I find that it's the valleys that overall had the biggest payoff in the entire story itself. Okay, so there's that. So that's my reading wrap up for the end of the month. And I don't believe I said in my intro, I may have to redo my intro now because I didn't tell you how many books I read and DNFs and all that good stuff. Anyway, what I want to get to now is what I am currently reading for October. We're going to start out with this one here because this one here, well, not October. I'm already jumping ahead a month. Let's talk about what I've got in store for August. Where did I come up with October? I am still trying to read this. This is a physical book that I started a long time ago, and I have since restarted it because I needed a refresh. I thought I was going to say and be diligent and say I'm going to give myself 1 hour every day to read a physical book. Hasn't happened, but I am leaving for vacation, so I'm going to bring this on the plane with me. I'm going to read it there. I will have my grandson with me, so it's iffy whether I will be investing much time, but I'm going to try. It's coming with me on vacation. If I get time away from family and doing all the things, I'm going to try to focus on reading this book. And it's Buckeye by Patrick Ryan, as you can see, because I'm sitting here holding in front of your face and you can read, obviously. This is a good book. Let me give you a quick recap rundown of what it's about. A small town novel of epic proportions. Oh, this is a blurb. This captivating story weaves the intimate lives of two Midwestern families across generations from World War II to the late 20th century. And the book says, in Bonhomie, Ohio, a stolen moment of passion sparked in the exuberant aftermath of the Allied victory in Europe binds Cal Jenkins, a man wounded not in war but by his inability to serve in it, to Margaret Salt, a woman trying to obscure her past. Cal's wife, Becky, has a spiritual gift. She is a seer who can conjure the dead, helping families connect with those they've lost. Margaret's husband, Felix, is serving on a naval cargo ship out of harm's way until a telegram suggests that the unthinkable might have happened. Later, as the country reconstructs in the post-war boom, a secret grows in Bonhomie. But nothing stays buried forever in a small town against the backdrop of some of the most transformative decades in modern America. The consequences that long ago encounter ripple through the next generation of both families, compelling them to re-examine who they thought they were and what the future might hold. Sweeping yet intimate, rich with piercing observation and the warmth that comes from profound understanding of the human spirit, Buckeye captures the universal longing for love and for goodness. First time when I started reading it, I got to page 178, which is, there are 448 pages in the book. So what? Close to halfway through. It's a good book. It's very engaging. Yeah, this is a good one. And I'm really hoping to get some time so I could finally finish it. Then what I'm going to be starting on audio for August is Biological War, a Scenario by Annie Jacobson. Now, if you know, I have talked about her a lot on this channel. She was one of probably my top read for Nuclear War, a Scenario in 2025. It is nonfiction. She is a journalist, and she's got a lot of connections in the political world, and she's been on many podcasts. You could check her out on the Sean Ryan podcast, and he is here on YouTube. She is brilliant, and her writing is incredible. I listened to Nuclear War, a Scenario on audio because, sorry, I had some in my eye. Because, because I do audio. But I highly recommend that book and probably this one too on audio. She has a way of writing. She writes like a thriller writer. These books do not read like nonfiction. They come off very true and like fast paced, like a thriller. And I'm really excited to come back to you with a recap on that one. So that's what I've got going on for August. Yeah. So again, starting in September, these will be done bi-monthly, and keep your eye out for a new series that I'm going to be launching on August 12th. And yeah, so good things are coming, and I'm very excited about it. So anyway, thank you for watching. Please comment, like, and subscribe. And you all have a great day, great night, great week, weekend, whenever you happen to be watching. And we'll chat about books again real soon. Bye.